Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another exciting and insightful conversation. Joining us today is a very kind and yet powerful woman I met in the country of Belize as I moved to live here and take care of my husband, who is going through certain illnesses. And in this process, I found not just a woman who can guide me and advise me in a legal capacity, but I also found myself having a friend, a dear friend who I can lean into for any emergency. So I would really love you to welcome Rachel Montejo to this conversation. Rachel, welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks. You're muted, my dear. So as we get started, I want us to take a step back and think about what do we do in Goldilocks and why we have these conversations. This conversations every week is about how do we get things just right so that we can thrive and we can succeed. And we live in a modern day world where everything is guided by laws, the framework and the boundaries are set forth by law. So understanding the law, having somebody to lean into to guide us through that process when we have questions are very, very mission critical. And Rachel is going to help us have this conversation. Rachel, as we get started, as a young woman growing up in Belize, it's not a country where the culture where women are raised to be empowered, to take charge, to actually embrace their power. How did you get into law and how did you get to become this powerful, yet kind, strong, and yet gentle lady who has also been a magistrate and an attorney?
Okay, so in the late 1990s, I started to study paralegal. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do law, but I wanted to understand the law. And I started looking at the previous magistrates, and they were lay, most of them were lay magistrates. And reading the law as the requirements for magistrate, it did say that they should be educated, that they should hold a bachelor's degree, but the lay magistrate system where civil servants in the country were pulled in and put to sit on the bench. I saw a need for more persons to become educated to sit on the bench. And so that was one of my primary reasons. I wanted to give back to Belize. I wanted to return and to complement the bench. I did that. I received honors. I studied in the University of Guyana in South America. It's the English-speaking equivalent of what Belize is in Central America, in South America. I studied law because I wanted to effect change. And part of that change is practicing family law, which is very important. Children, families not having the know-how and to understand the law. I would easily enjoy mediation. I try to speak to persons. I assist a lot of families. And family law touches my heart really and truly, because if you have a lot of broken homes and you have the fabric of society is torn, you know, the morality, who raises these kids from broken home. And so for that reason, family law is there, near and dear to my heart. I do practice corporate law, and something I'd like to mention in corporate law is that when you want to invest in Belize, Belize, like many other countries, are now required to provide central bank clearance. So if a person, a non-national, wishes to invest in Belize, they need to say their names, where their source of funding is coming from. And then they send that in with their passports, and then that clearance, they do their due diligence, and then that clearance comes through. And you can form your companies, you can do your land transfers if you purchase companies. So that is an integral part of any first step in investing in Belize, transferring of land or business ownership. So that is very important for us to understand. Next, you also asked me back then why and how did I study law. I had very supportive parents who pushed me, who encouraged me to study law. I had a short stint in politics along with my father. He was also a politician. He was the mayor of Independence in 1981. My mother was his campaign manager. And so they were always persons of public service. And that is something that I also took from the best of both of them. So here I am in the Cayo Judicial District, and that's what I do enjoy. I enjoy going to events and donating my time in public service, whether it's through the Department of Human Services or through a dear friend of mine, Dr. Concalves, who usually has a professional fair, and she does her own clinic, and she asked me to come and give some legal advice, you know, basics, just to guide persons along the way. So that's my contribution here in Belize. I noticed that you mentioned that you'd like to discuss the issue of how to think with a legal mindset. Everything touches on concern law. That's what I tell most persons who enjoy talking law with me. I said it's very important because you have fisheries law, you have forestry law, you have land law, you have family law, you have employment law. Every area and aspect of life involves the law. And even money lending, you can't just lend somebody money and think that, you know, it's okay, or you want to get into the loan shark business, what, you know, and put any types of prices. No, Belize has a Money Lenders Act, and it's very important that persons know that they need to get their central bank license, they need to set in their petitions, and the consequences of breaching the law is $250,000 Belize penalty fee. So these are things that clients do come in and they speak to me about their issues, and they didn't know that the Money Lenders Act exists. So having this avenue to explain that the law touches and concerns every aspect of life, you know, and I can speak on most areas that I do practice. You can pull out some words from me and guide me along the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we get started, I'm glad you positioned the importance of having a legal mindset. And you also introduced some of the basic requirements of coming to invest in Belize. So the thought that comes to my mind as we are having this conversation, Rachel, is Belize is a English-speaking country south of the United States, the only English-speaking country. So healthcare, legal, everything is done in English. It's easier and convenient for Canadians and folks from the United States to come here to invest in a retirement home, start a business, right?
Yeah.
And it is also a stable economy from the perspective of the currency doesn't float internationally. It's directly pegged to the US dollar. Every US dollar is worth 2 Belizean dollars. So it gives some semblance of economic stability. And the third thing that I have observed is Belize is part of Canada and US's intentional strategy of strengthening and creating economic viability so that folks who are fleeing their home countries can stop in Belize and build a life instead of showing up at the United States southern borders where we cannot process people fast enough, right? So I'm already seeing in the Cayo district so many Latin Americans from Central Americans, Spanish-speaking Central Americans moving into Cayo, making this a home, building a new life. So there is such a interconnectedness for business, for economics, and immigration between Belize and the United States. Talk to us a little bit about how that partnership can benefit Belize and Americans or Canadians who want to come and have a second home here, have a business here, because there are lots to benefit from given this framework.
All right, first of all, Belize has for labor costs for unskilled labor, it starts at $2.50 US. So it's competitive as it relates to your home country labor costs. So if you want to come and relax and you want house cleaning and gardening and as such, you're looking at paying between $2.50 to $3.75 to start off with. And from there on, it goes with professional fees, those vary. All right, so when it comes to like call centers, service providers, we're very competitive as it relates to labor costs. So I needed to punch that in. Now, once a country is a member of CARICOM, there is a freedom of movement of employment that Belize also shares, because Belize is a member of CARICOM, which is not just the Commonwealth, but particularly the Caribbean. So if you study somewhere within the Caribbean, you can come and move with just, I think, a cost of $250 Belize. It's 125 US dollars to get your applications going, and then you can practice as if you're just from another province. So Belize also assists in welcoming skilled labor and professional labor as such. Guide me again, Kasturi.
So I'm glad you brought up CARICOM, right? Because then that gives people who want to invest in Belize, people who want to live in Belize, the understanding that, okay, I can come live here, apply for permanent residency, and once I can move around the country, I can also move around the region. And that is huge given the emerging opportunities existing in this entire Caribbean region. And I'm looking at declining populations in the United States, increasing demand specifically in the healthcare area, and the opportunities for grooming our young people to take on those jobs. And Belize is poised, because of its main language being English, to take advantage of that.
Right.
How can we from Belize help commerce happen in both directions? Belizeans going there to take advantage of opportunities, and then people from the United States and Canada coming here to build businesses and help improve our economy, where everybody wins on both sides of that transaction.
So I want to say that traditionally, Belize's dollar is earned through the tourism industry and the agricultural industry, and the service industry is a booming and growing industry. Services are financial services. They are also call center services and other services that I haven't mentioned. And tourism is also a service that is provided. It is a packaged product for our inland and our coastal areas. We have several islands, and some of them are towns and villages, and some of them are privately owned and can also be purchased privately and transferred. Inland, we have a diverse area. We have our cultural heritage. We have the Mayan ruins. Those are within the Orange Walk and Cayo district and the Toledo district. There's also, those are for the Mayan cultures and ruins. Then you have the Garifuna culture, which is primarily in the Stan Creek district. And they also have their own culture, their their cultural wares, and their specific food. Belize is a melting pot because if you walk the streets, you're going to see Hindu-looking Turks. You're going to see all colors of people, and everybody's accepting of different cultures and different religions. I've seen so many religions in Belize, not just Christian and Catholic and Anglican and Baptist, but there are also Hindus, and there are Buddha, and there's also Muslim, and as the case be it. BELTRIDE is the Belize Trade and Investment Development Service, and that is a department that I once worked over 14 years ago. And that is supposed to be the one-stop shop. They offer duty-free concessions for small and medium enterprises and for export processing zones and so on. You are required to do a business plan, and that is where a whole field of experience comes in with Dr. Kashtori, whereby you have to show what it is that you want to do. For example, at a processing zone, is it that you want to process papayas, or is it that you want to process or assemble something and then export it within the Caribbean or within wherever in the world? And Belize is a bridge between Latin America, which we are a member of CICA, that is for an integrated Guatemala, Honduras, everywhere, all the way down to Panama, okay? And we are also members of the CARICOM, which are the other islands within the Caribbean. So once Belize shares, though, we are also open to those markets for your products and services. So this is something good because whilst Belize has a very small population, your export market is actually your Caribbean and your Latin American countries. So that's for your target market. We're there. I also see influx of, there's also Chinese and Taiwanese and Asian cultures within the country, and they're primarily within the grocery store and the food industry. We do have a lot of room for other cuisines in the country because people want to try new things. And so there is, for example, there's just one Japanese restaurant in the entire country, and that's in Belize City. There is also 2 Indian restaurants, one in Belmopan, one in Samantha in Belize. And there are lots of local restaurants for local food throughout the country, but there is always need for more because this is a support industry of the tourism industry. There's always room for more bed and breakfast areas, especially within the Cayo district, because the Cayo district is the second money earner for the tourism industry, a part of the San Pedro Ambergris Key. So in the tourism sector, Belize is ripe for the picking for real estate, for rentals, and for purchases. Doctor, guide me again.
I'm glad you brought up the Airbnb and the cuisine and the cultures. We also have unexpectedly a huge German community. Germans who came here, they do agriculture. They also do all the engineering and manufacturing side. You work with them, you live close to their community. And so Belize is second to none in terms of energy efficiency. We see solar panels on the roofs. Everybody catches rainwater. The primary consumption is rainwater and the city water is alternative. So we're building a society that is environmentally conscious that also then allows our pocketbooks to stretch further, right? When we are blessed by Mother Nature, we're taking advantage of it. So as you look at all of the opportunities available in Belize when it comes to continuing the expansion of energy in an economical way, Belize has the opportunity not only to produce all of what it needs, it can export to all the neighboring countries and the regions because of the abundance it has in terms of sunlight and other resources.
Right.
Are you aware of any push to expand in terms of energy and manufacturing and industries that are engineering related, in addition to call centers and services that are human capacity related?
Okay, that's a packed question. I'm going to ride right on the manufacturing area and go back to electricity. So electricity is generated by our hydro dam, and those are for only certain months when it rains. So that's for the rainy season. Once that water has reached its capacity and can't flow over the dam or that particular point, then the turbines come on and we purchase electricity from Mexico. That is certainly an investment area worth looking at. It's a substantial area because you can look into alternative energy. And yes, there are some. If you go to Spanish Lookout, you can see Quality Chicken and a lot of other areas are going completely solar. And they're producing so much solar that they're probably selling to their very own communities and nearby communities. So that's certainly an area open for investment in other communities, okay? Even if it's not to sell power, it is certainly something that persons can invest in and come to Belize and sell solar products. So that's a particular area. Belize does have the rates of electricity does go up when we use the diesel because we have to run diesel and in certain parts of the country, and we purchase electricity from Mexico. So when it comes to electricity, we surely, I think that the Minister of Investment, Economic Development, and the Cabinet, I think, could look at any proposals that investors can come in and make towards contributing to alternative energy. You said now for manufacturing. When it comes to manufacturing, we do have persons within the Belize district who did sewing, and there's a Williamson sewing factory that had closed down about a decade or 15 years ago. And so all those persons that have learned sewing and everything, that's just sitting knowledge waiting to be uncapped again for that type of industry. Manufacturing, we do have a lot of influx from Central America, and we have a very good skilled labor force when it comes to managing companies in any manufacturing industry. As it relates to making a product and finding your engineers to make detergents and so on, that is something that can be imported from within the Caribbean. And there are countries such as Guyana who have a lot of these chemical engineers that can come in through the freedom of movement market and work for companies who want to create products from Belize. And Belize would not be the only market. You can have the greater Caribbean to be the market. I think Procter & Gamble is a manufacturer there in Puerto Rico, and they have the market within the Caribbean to send to right there, no? So we could certainly jump in that basket and be competitive if we should have a manufacturing plant. So yes, there's a lot of room for manufacturing because we don't have a lot of manufacturers.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity, right? As young people go and get an education in engineering and manufacturing and processes, instead of leaving the country and draining the brain capacity, bringing industries here allows us to keep our talent here and grow our economy. So that is what's fascinating to me. So as we continue this conversation, one of the growing areas of industry here is call centers and outsource services. Whether it is scheduling appointments, whether it's taking customer calls, whether it's doing the traditional outsourcing services, with room to grow in media marketing and accounting, transactional processing. How hard is it to get the licenses? And is that also something that people have to go through BELTRIDE?
Yes, certainly it's something that BELTRIDE facilitates with, but the business plan you have to do on your own. You can outsource that to persons within the industry here, with accountants, finance officers. And as I'm saying these things, I'm thinking, Kasturi, Kasturi, Kasturi. But yes, you definitely know that BELTRIDE also helps with training staff for these call centers, and they're the leading department to help with training. I must add that there's a large pool of associate's degree and bachelor's degree graduates who are could be easily absorbed into working at call centers. Something that is also important for Belize is that a lot of persons are bilingual in the Corozal district, the Orange Walk district, and the
Higher
Higher
district.
district. Almost every household is bilingual, and Spanish is taught in high school. So this is very important because when you have outsourced for an English-speaking person, there are a lot of persons within the Canadian and the American market who speak only Spanish. And so we have that added benefit and skill to add to the labor pool. Cass, I also heard you said there are large Germans. There is an influx of Germans currently from Europe, and there are also generational Germans who came over 70 years ago. They came from Germany, then they went to Mexico, and then they came to Belize. And these persons are referred to as Mennonites in America. They're probably called Quakers, or they are similar to them. Mennonites, they do a lot of agriculture, and they are now starting in products within Spanish Lookout. And they also do road infrastructure and house building, metal building. So they have become specially skilled in these areas from generation to generation. So they're blacksmiths. And fun to know is that some communities, they still use the horse and buggy. Other communities within the Mennonite community, some of them are forward thinking, and some of them use automobiles and fly planes and use machines to do their agriculture. So we have different groups of Mennonites, some more traditional and others more advanced, but they essentially are approximately 85% of all the beans and the legumes and rice that is grown. I know that I took a flyover with one of my friends, and I saw the Rio Hondo River, and it's so much water from the Rio Hondo River. That's somewhere in Orange Walk. And so there's all this industry and land and water available for crops like rice and different varieties of rice. I was impressed to see all of the areas that they are planting rice. So we also have a large market to produce more and to become basically the basket economy for not just the Caribbean, but for North America as well.
And I'm glad that you went into the agricultural conversation, Rachel, because COVID has taught us when we produce food, no matter what happens in the world, we are going to be okay, because if we have a roof over our head and we have food in our bellies, we can have fun.
Yeah.
But if you have all the money in the world and you can't access the food because you don't grow food, then all bets are off, right? So we saw the importance of not just putting all our eggs in one basket of tourism, but including the ability to straddle agriculture and tourism. Don't leave our history and our legacy on the wayside, but bring it along for the future. So, and I am here because of the ability to grow food and make health a priority and make a healthy living a priority. There are lots of North Americans who are looking for it. We have a lot of land. So as we bring this conversation to a close, what advice do you have for North Americans who are either looking for a healthy lifestyle alternative or looking to come and live a healthy lifestyle as they age? Make a pitch for Belize.
Okay, so in Belize, we have a lot of farming, some of it organic and some of it with the use of pesticides, chemicals. A lot more of our market uses just organic, because that is what your farmers can afford. And they know that the value of providing an organic vegetable or an organic fruit is what brings the dollar. Belize is a small country. Our index is less than 1% of any stint in anything that you'd like to compare us to when it comes to production and things like that. We are a welcoming nation, and it's very much open to you coming and spending a month and seeing what investment opportunities you have whilst you're semi-retired and looking at. Before I send my pitch, there's also a large area of shrubs, bushes, and those I understand from a good friend and a very good source is excellent for investment in the goat section. Belize doesn't produce a lot of goat, but I understand that you don't even have to make pasture as you do for sheep and your cattle. Goats, they love shrubs, and they would, you know, make it fatten themselves. Well, Belize has a lot of investment opportunities, everyone. And if you have any further questions, do call me, call Kasturi. We'll get you hooked up with the right persons. And I hope I can come again and answer some more questions if you have any questions. And if a doctor would allow me, I'm here to answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. So I will post the ability to contact you and reach out to you on the YouTube as we release this video. But I know Robin may have some questions or a question to present to you. So go ahead, Robin.
Great presentation. I'm really excited about all the opportunities that you've talked about. And I always like to ask guests, what have been some of the, I mean, you mentioned multiple challenges, but if you want to highlight maybe an internal challenge or another external challenge that you faced in trying to accomplish the most important things that you are trying to do as an attorney and is helping your country and your community.
You want to know an internal and an external
challenge? Like what has been challenging for you in walking this path that you have chosen, you know, to be an attorney, to help your community, you know, help on these different investments and things like that? What's been kind of an internal challenge that you've had to be aware of and overcome or to work through?
One would It would certainly be some of the criminal practice that I've done. Sometimes I don't choose my clients. Sometimes the Supreme Court or the High Court would award a name and say, you're the attorney for this person. And it's pretty much like a legal aid assistance. And you have to give special reasons. I've never had to give a special reason. I've done representation because when I conflict what the crime or the charge is, I always look at it that every person should have a fair trial and should be legally represented. So it would be like Thomas More said one time, he says, look, you can't remove all the laws, because what if the devil comes back for you? How are you going to deal with the devil? And so Thomas More is basically one of my favorite persons whenever I think about morality and the laws. So that's a challenge. What's the other part of the question that you asked me about?
I was going to say, what are some external challenges that that you have faced as you've tried to, bring opportunities to people, or as Casa said, to, promote Belize, improve your community? What have been some of the bumps in the road that you've hit and had to work through?
Okay, so the bumps in the road basically would be the time frame that departments are now taking after COVID. During COVID, for example, we do cases online. Now for this month and onwards, we're going back into courtroom, and it was getting very convenient for us to do law from the Cayo district, which is 70 odd miles away from where the civil courts are in the country.
Oh, wow.
I would certainly like to see civil courts in some of the larger districts like the Cayo district. This is where our Belmopan city is located within this judicial district. And so that is one of the things that I would like to see in the future. It would certainly save money for clients to get to court. It would be better access. It would be easier for them to access justice. And some of the legislation needs to be voiced, like what we're doing now. Persons within various industries should come in and say, what are the changes in the law? How does it affect the citizen that requires this assistance or outreach to the law? So I do think that that is something that is a limitation at this time, because there are lots of laws that are being amended. And as an attorney, I do my best to read my gazettes, but not every citizen is going to read and know what the changes are. And not everyone has access to the internet and to read on news. So yeah, that is definitely something to look at.
That's great. Yeah, excellent points and very, very good observation. So having access to the law. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you so much, Rachel. I love Robin's question, especially because it goes to the heart of the low-hanging fruit that we can address as a collective community to deal with both the internal and external challenges. And I didn't realize that Belmopan, the capital city of the country, didn't have civil court. So because they used to be in Belize City, everything was there. Now that they've moved inland from a protection perspective, from environmental changes, they still haven't put all the rest of the infrastructure around the capital city.
They have civil courts in every district for magistrates court. But for the High Court, for the Supreme Court jurisdiction, there's just Belize City. For the criminal division, there are Supreme Court alternatively in Carazal and Orange Walk. So from one year to the next, they alternate for the Supreme Court there or the High Court. Belize City has several judges for civil matters, but there's no other.
Interesting. Thank you so much
You're
for this
welcome.
enlightening conversation, Rachel. It is both an honor and a pleasure to have your insights out there through this community and the communities network, because this
You're
is an
welcome.
opportunity for us to promote Belize, to invite people to come and invest in Belize, enjoy Belize, right? And
Yes.
also bring employment into Belize. So to our community members here, keep your eyes and ears open whenever there is an opportunity to collaborate and build win-win partnerships. Reach out to Rachel, reach out to me. I will put you on to Rachel and other mission critical folks who can make this happen, because after all, this Goldilocks community is always about how do we get it just right so that our lives are thriving and the lives around us are thriving. So go out there and keep the most important thing in mind. Human interactions are an opportunity for transformation. So meet people, talk to people, explore opportunities, and transform lives. And in the process, always remember to take some time to transform yourself.